Some love stories begin with a glance across a crowded room. This one began with a heartbeat heard through a stone wall. Elena had wandered into the old Voss Manor on a dare, her flashlight cutting thin lines through centuries of dust and shadow. She was not afraid of the dark. She never had been. What she did not expect was the figure standing perfectly still at the far end of the grand hallway, his pale face catching the moonlight like carved marble. His name was Dorian, and he had not spoken to another living soul in over 300 years. He watched her move through his home with a kind of fearless curiosity that unsettled him deeply. Most people who entered the manor ran. Elena turned toward him and asked if he lived there. He said yes. She said the architecture was beautiful. He agreed. And just like that, something ancient and dormant cracked open inside him like a door long sealed against the cold. They began meeting every night at the edge of the forest where the manor grounds gave way to the old town road. Elena would bring coffee she never shared because Dorian could not drink it, and he would bring stories, centuries of them, layered and rich like sediment at the bottom of a river. He told her about watching cities rise and fall, about standing on hillsides during storms that no longer existed in any record. She listened with the kind of attention most people reserve for things they are afraid to lose. Dorian had loved before, briefly and painfully, in ways that had taught him love was not built for creatures like him. It moved too fast, burned too bright, and left him standing in the ash of someone else's lifetime. But Elena was different in a way he could not immediately name. She did not romanticize what he was. She did not flinch from it either. She simply saw him, and that was more terrifying than any darkness he had ever walked through. The problem with loving something eternal when you are not is that time becomes the villain of the story. Elena felt it first, not as fear, but as a quiet ache that settled in her chest during their long conversations. She began to notice how Dorian looked at her sometimes, with a grief already forming behind his eyes, as if he were memorizing her before the inevitable erasure. She confronted him about it one evening when the fog was so thick it swallowed the tree line whole. She asked him directly whether he was already mourning her. He was silent for a long moment, and then he told her the truth. He said that every person he had ever loved existed now only in memory, and that memory, however perfect, was a cold substitute for presence. He told her he had promised himself he would never do this again, never let someone become necessary to him, because necessity in his world always ended in loss. Elena reached out and took his hand, which was cool and still as river stone, and she told him that she would rather have a love that hurt than a life that felt nothing at all. The question eventually arrived the way all impossible questions do, quietly and without ceremony. Dorian never asked it. He refused to. But Elena had been thinking about it for months, turning it over like a coin she could not decide whether to spend. Immortality was not a gift he could offer lightly. He had seen others make that transformation and lose something essential in the crossing, some warmth, some humanity that never fully returned. He told her all of this honestly, sitting on the manor steps beneath a sky full of stars that had been burning since before he was born. Elena listened to every word. Then she told him she was not asking to become what he was. She was asking him to stay present for whatever time they had, to stop grieving her before she was gone. That was the moment Dorian understood that love, real love, was not about duration. It was about depth. And for the first time in 300 years, he chose to be fully alive in the only way still available to him, by loving someone completely, without reservation, without the armor of anticipated loss.